You are listening to the People Centric podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, People Centric leaders. It's Don Harkey here from the People Centric team. Our team is constantly trying to get new information. We are constantly out there reading articles, looking online, trying to follow new research, all the things that do with how people work. And so we follow a lot of different sources. And a lot of times we'll get a new article and we'll share it with each other. And we're like, oh, wow, this is a fantastic new insight. Hey, we've learned a lot about this. But sometimes we get an article that we just disagree with as a team and we kind of push back on. So we decided that we just got one recently, actually today. Stephanie brought an article back to the team and said, I got this article and it's from a major organization that works nationally. And it quotes other big organizations. It quotes Gallup and it quotes McKinsey. And then there were interviews with a bunch of HR people. And we think that the suggestions in here are a little bit off, a little bit misguided. Furthermore, we also think that these article also shows how why maybe we're stuck in employee engagement. We work with lots of organizations who do employee engagement surveys. They say they look at the results, they try to address the results year after year, and they're continuously unsuccessful at moving the needle. Even Gallup, who's been measuring engagement for many years now, has not really been successful in moving the bar overall. You still see engagement levels not change. And I think this article highlights maybe why some of the approaches don't work. So Stephanie's with us. It's Stephanie, Philip, and Don today. So it's pretty easy. You're going to hear the different voices. So Stephanie, you found this article. First of all, tell us where the article is from. And we're not throwing shade on the organization. We have to put out ideas and stuff like that. We have to be able to discuss those ideas. So very good organization. But where did this come from and what caught your attention?
Yeah, so was in my inbox earlier today and saw I had a new newsletter from SHRM, which is a National Human Resources Association. And many of you may be really familiar with SHRM. And again, like Don said, we are fans of SHRM. We think they are great. They have a lot of awesome resources and tools, especially if you are a leader in HR. And so I'm subscribed to their newsletter because, like Don said, they often send out things that are really great or help us have a better idea of what are some of the new trends or things that are going on in HR. Sometimes it'll even clue us into maybe different law changes that might impact companies and clients that we work with. But this one really caught my eye because it was all about employee disengagement. So I quickly clicked to the article since that's what we do every day. And the title of this article is 7 Strategies to Address Employee Disengagement. And so, like Don said, they cite Gallup, McKinsey, and for some of that data that tells us, right, that only 33% of employees nationally are engaged in their jobs, which is a statistic that we would really love to see improve. But to Don's point, also, it's been stagnant for years and years and years. And so through this article, the author, alongside some HR leaders across the country, have pulled together a plan, and they said, okay, here's 7 ways that you can, if you have disengaged employees, that you can work to decrease employee disengagement. And I think what you're going to hear from all of us as we get this is, again, not to spoil it, but we don't really agree with this approach. And I think there's several key reasons why. And maybe I'll just kick us off. And Philip and Don, please jump in. But one of the first things I think that stood out to all of us reading this article was, again, that's the seven strategies to help managers get to the root of their employees' disengagement and address it before it negatively affects their other team members and decreases productivity. That's a direct quote from the article. And then it lays out 7 steps. I mean, I think the first thing we'd say high level is this is a really highly individualized approach. So number one, it's identify your disengaged employees, root out the problems. And
Put yellow stickers on their foreheads, and then you'll know everywhere they go that they're disengaged. The article does
right.
not say that.
Yeah, and you could put green stickers on the engagement and red stickers on the toxic one. So I think like just number one that stood out to me of like, we survey with a lot of organizations across the country and help them score their engagement. And one of the things that we caution people against is like, don't take that score and then try to necessarily figure out the individuals behind that. And I think we need to maybe talk about why, from our perspective, that's not always helpful. Again, it's not that it's wrong necessarily, because like this article does touch on like, hey, there's maybe some mental health things that are happening that are causing employees to disengage, or maybe they don't feel cared about at work. But I think from our experience, what we've seen a lot of employees who have disengaged, it's because of how they're being managed. It's because of how like the processes are not easy to follow. I don't like how people communicate with me. So it's not that they don't feel cared about as a person. It's that they just don't like their manager. They don't like how things are happening or how decisions are being made. And so that's what makes this individualized approach really hard, because if you just go one-on-one down the line for everybody, we're not really addressing some of those broader issues that are causing disengagement.
Yeah, it does give, like, I was just rereading this on this, and it says pinpoint which employees are disengaged. And I think in our context, the first thing we thought of is when we're brought in, a lot of times we're doing surveys. And so, like, we're thinking if you did a survey and then you found out, okay, well, 60% of my employees are disengaged. And then you sat back and said, well, who are we talking about? Well, now you violated the survey, right? We don't share individual results on that. But thinking about this, from a systematic approach versus a one-to-one approach, if you're a supervisor manager, like, this is good advice. If you're thinking about people on your team, yes, you should think about, where are my people at? Are they engaged, disengaged, or toxic? And just to back up just a little bit, let me give a really quick summary of those three things in case you haven't listened to our podcast for very long. An engaged employee is, hi, I'm Don. I'm engaged. I love this place. It's awesome. You guys are great. I'm aligned. I'm giving you everything I've got. I'm all in. Let's do this thing. Right. A disengaged employee is, my name is Don. I go to work. I do my job. I go home. That's it. I'm not giving you anything really that much extra. If there's a problem, I might speak up, but I probably won't. I'll just let you guys figure it out. You're just kind of getting part of me. And then the third type of employee is the toxic employee. Hi, I'm Don. I'm the toxic employee, and I hate you. I hate everything you do. I hate what you stand for, and I'm going to fight you all along the way. Or sometimes I disguise myself as a toxic employee and say, hey, my name is Don and I love this place, which is why I can't believe these idiots are crashing into the ground like the way that they do, because I love it so much here. And we consider toxicity as misaligned. And Gallup calls it actively disengaged. So it's like they're fighting the disengaged. So yeah, I think that, what's the downside? Philip, I'm curious about your thoughts on this, because I could see the one-on-one from the manager individual perspective, but I just think from an organizational perspective, if you're trying to improve engagement across the board, boy, that's hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, our best question, we put this in our surveys. We say, which Taylor Swift song is your favorite? And toxic people always choose Antihero. Hey, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Because it's just the soundtrack that they walk.
Okay, but as you say that, there's somebody out there who's like, if you made a Taylor Swift theme engagement survey, we would hire you. So maybe that's not a bad idea, Philip.
Wow, I am full of great ideas and sometimes terrible ideas. So no, I think what's really great, and I like how Don mentioned, these questions are great if you're a manager who's not sure how to approach an employee. And one of the first parts of engagement is like, do you actually engage them? And so if you see someone who is struggling, hopefully you as a manager, if you are engaged, you'll actually want to lean in and help make a difference there. And if you're disengaged, you probably might notice and may not care. And if you're toxic, you'll probably try to engage them and take them in the wrong direction. So I think it's great, the incentive of, or the idea of, hey, you should actually pay attention to this. And I think the article's point is that. And from a systematic standpoint, though, both you and Stephanie both have shared, you really can't solve culture by individually connecting with everyone at all times, right? Like that is not sustainable, especially the larger an organization, the harder it is to move that needle. So I think some of the things we do that are different is creating what we would say our culture and our systems that help almost in a way like correct itself. So focusing more on the things that impact engagement rather than engagement itself.
Yeah, if you work on it on a one by one basis, you don't know what's causing that, which I think supervisors, managers, absolutely, that's your job within your team to work with people to help to try to get them aligned, or to get them misaligned and move out, right? One of the two things, like you're trying to push them one way or the other. But you're right, if you're thinking about it from a bigger picture perspective of tackling engagement as a whole, I can meet with you and I can talk to you about everything that you care about, and I can care about you and all the things that are right. But if I'm not fixing the underlying problem within the company, that pain's still there. It's sort of like if somebody's got a rock in their shoe and I go up to them and I'm saying, so you have a rock in your shoe? How do you feel about that? Are you okay with the rock in your shoe? What's going on? And I never take the rock. I never help them take the rock out of their shoe. They're still going to be ticked off.
Yeah, it's essentially, wow, something's wrong here. I'm sorry that the problem is you, and the problem clearly is not me. I think that's the one thing this article does tend to miss. Like, hey, things are really good here. Don't you notice we have benefits? I'm an engaged manager. Who cares about you? We can talk our way through this. And there's elements of that that are good and are helpful. But yeah, to your point, it doesn't really cause one to step back and think, what is the wider change? So especially leaders who have that influence at an organization-wide level. If you see this happening, then I hope you step back and say, what is it that I can do differently? What can our whole team and organization do differently to then help and engage those people?
Yeah, and just so that all the readers know, or all the listeners know, and watchers, if you're watching us on YouTube, that this approach that we're talking about, the systematic approach of changing the underlying systems that can create engagement or disengagement, is really, really effective. So like organizations that we've worked with at People Centric for a year or longer are on average 20 percentage points more engaged than what the Gallup average is. So we see Gallup sees about 33% engagement levels. We average 53, 54% engagement levels for a company that we've worked with for a year. And we see significant increases of that, not by going one-to-one with people and having conversations, but by implementing systems. So like, what's examples of systems that help managers have good conversations with their employees? Like, let's flip that around. How do we help these one-on-one conversations happen without doing it one-on-one?
Yeah, one of the examples that stands out to me in this article is they talk about like, how do you identify a disengaged employee? And they talk about list a couple of things. And they say tardiness, missed deadlines, or low quality output could be indicators that someone is disengaged in their work. And like, we kind of cringe reading that, because I think if you have managed people, like tardiness is probably, it can be an indicator. It could also mean that like they're a parent who's trying to get their kids to school on time and maybe needs some extra support or just a little grace for some of those things, or someone who's dealing with medical issues. So that could be nothing to do with how they feel about work, just real life things in their life. But the low quality output one stands out to me, of like, okay, if I'm noticing low quality output of someone at work, this is one where I would, as a manager, step back and say, okay, what could be impacting this? Because what we know to be true is that everyone wants to do a good job. Like that is just, I think, an internal drive as human beings. Like nobody shows up to their first day of the new job that they just got, like, they were excited and they got hired there. They're excited about this new job. They selfie in front of the building and then are just like, I don't care if I do a good job here. Now, definitely people get there, right? When they get disengaged, or especially if they get toxic, they can get a little apathetic. But generally, if we see low quality output happening from an employee that really we don't have that sense that they have a real injustice against the company or something's happened, then that's something where I would look at the systems and say, okay, like what is happening here? And, like, is there a tool that we're missing? Did something break? Do we need to look at the processes? Like peel back the onion a little bit on that and say, okay, not just what's the output, but what's the process that leads to that output? And is that process easy to follow? Do our employees have the tools and resources that they need to do that job well? Have we trained them to do that at a high quality level?
Yeah, so you just listed a couple systems that you could implement that would help you not just deal with this on a one-to-one basis, but could help an organization deal with it across the board. One of those is the detection system. How do I detect when they're disengaged? And I think we cringe when we read like tardiness and missed deadlines and low quality output because we're waiting for the end of that process. Like if you think about that, if that's caused by an employee's disengagement, if they're starting to be tardy and have low work output and all those things, man, they've been disengaged for a while. That's impacting their work quality. And we're not talking about a bad day, right? If it's a bad day, that's a different thing. We all have bad days or whatever, that kind of stuff. But if it's really impacting, so the system to try to combat, to be able to detect disengagement or disengagement is the check-in. And we talk about it regularly, like having at least quarterly check-ins with every employee. And that's the supervisor of the employee and the employee to sit down to say, how are you? Where are you at? Tell me about this. Here's the goals that we've set together from last quarter. Let's go over them for this next quarter. Let's talk about what it is that you're thinking about. What kind of development do you want to do? You can tell in those conversations where people are at. You could tell without doing the survey, just about every one of those conversations, you could tell if they were engaged, disengaged, or toxic.
I would say that's one of my favorite systems for our team to help implement, actually, because I think usually at first, you see different responses from managers, and some are super stoked, and a lot are, you can tell they think to themselves, okay, another meeting. I love this. Not. But after the second or third quarter of them doing this, they then start even the folks that were like, I don't know about this. They start to say, oh my gosh, my team is coming to me with ideas. They're actually starting to like buy into this. They're really starting to lean into it. Because I think it too, from a leadership to a team, it shows that you care and that you listen and that you follow up. And that's maybe this one thing that the article, again, I think it speaks in the direction of that. But when it's not system wide, I feel like in some ways you might actually become misaligned from your own organization if you're trying to implement all this, but the system itself doesn't promote that. You're a fish swimming up the wrong current, really. And so it could actually lead to more frustration for a manager rather than solutions.
I feel like sometimes when we're doing this, my earphones, which I'm the only one that wears my headset here, I wear it mostly for looks because it's really cool. But we're all in a single office here, that's why I wear these so that we're not echoing back and forth, just so that people on YouTube aren't over judging me. But sometimes I think these headphones, I can hear people who are in their car or out walking in the morning or listening to our podcast go, yeah, but, and I think I can hear those. And I think I heard some of you say, yes, I would love to do check-ins with all of my employees, but I have 37 people that work for me. How do I catch up with that? And the answer is you don't. There's a second design problem in your organization that's creating disengagement, and it's the span of control. It's the number of people that you have reporting to one supervisor. How do you supervise 37 people effectively? The answer is you don't. You don't hardly know their names. Like knowing their names, their individually, and where they're at, and all the things that a supervisor should know about a person, like that's too much. And we see so many times that supervisor gets blasted on evals. To me, it's like an engineer blaming a beam for folding because you put too much weight on it. Like you don't blame the beam, you blame the engineer for putting too much weight on it. It's like the organization is designed badly. Stephanie brought up another important system that we followed. So we talk about detecting the disengagement. We talked about structuring for the disengagement, right? That means that supervisors should have a reasonable number of people to be able to detect when something bad's happening. They should be able to know their people and well enough that they can start a conversation and jump in and intercede if there's a disengagement. But then Stephanie, you also said something really, really strange. We have to train people on how they can talk to their supervisors, like how they can talk to their employees.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but talking is challenging to your employees. It's really hard. And I'm being a little sarcastic there, but I think that's also what the research tells us right now. And there's a lot of data out there showing that not only are most managers are uncomfortable giving critical feedback to their employees. And I think that's a pretty expected statistic. But then some of the newer research coming out is saying that most managers are uncomfortable having any conversation with their employees. So that means not only are people not getting the feedback they need when things aren't going well, but they're also not getting any feedback to tell them when they are doing well or how to do something well. They're not getting challenged in their work. They're not getting asked, how do you want to grow? Do you have a great idea? We're not collecting any of that important feedback coming the other direction as well. And so I think in this article, it talks about like ask some probing questions. And again, to reiterate of like if you are on a one-on-one level and you notice someone is struggling, I think some of the questions they're asking here could be helpful. But if you're looking at it and saying, okay, my team is really disengaged, or I'm noticing there's a lot of disengagement, then we got to take that step back and like Don said, evaluate it. And if we're consistently failing something, right? And we see that there's failure pretty much across the board or in a large group of employees, it's probably not the employees all plotting to like do that badly and fail on purpose. There's probably something that is causing that failure. And that's where I think we could like train the employees, but then also we've got to train our managers to go and talk to the employees and ask that question and say, hey, I'm just noticing that this isn't going well, right? And it's not to point a finger at any one person or single anybody out, but I'm just noticing like, hey, like team, like we're just like consistently not hitting this number. Can somebody tell me like how does it feel to do this, or what's happening, or what are we hearing from our customers? How do we do this better? Who has a good idea for how to fix it? And then we've actually got to train people to have those conversations, because just simply put, they're not comfortable doing that. We just know that managers are not comfortable going into a room of their employees and asking who has a good idea to fix this.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, we just talked to a supervisor of a team a few weeks ago, and he talked about like handling employee drama and talking to employees like when they felt like they were getting off. He talked about this, like this is what he was talking about. And he said that he goes, this stuff really annoys me because it keeps me from doing my job, is what he said. It keeps me from doing my job. And we pointed out to him that said, like it or not, those conversations you have with your employees to help them develop, help them stay aligned with the team is the most important part of your job as a supervisor manager. Now, some of you, I just heard again through my magic headphones, maybe say it's not the most important part of my job. My most important part of my job is doing this process stuff and all that. Well, that might be the way that you look at your job right now, but it's not how a good manager looks at it. That's somebody who's a good processor, who's gotten into a manager role, who's probably spends a lot of time digging into the weeds on their employee issues, which I respect people that can do that. And it's a lot to a lot of balls in the air, but it does not help with, it creates disengagement and toxicity by approaching that. Let's move on in this article. It brings up another, there's fourth point here is highlight relevant benefits. First, we all kind of looked at that and I think we misinterpreted it. We kind of joked around about it a little bit like if somebody's disengaged, but you sit back and go, hey, but really, we pay you really well, right? Think about all the money you make, and where else do you get a 401k with a 3% match? Or think about, the coffee machine we have in the office or the things like that. But this is really, when you read into it, it's really referring to specific benefits that might support an employee. Some of these are systems. So like what kinds of benefits help employees overcome disengagement, and maybe what types of benefits don't? Does pay drive engagement or disengagement? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I would say it depends, right? And one thing that they do mention here, I can't remember which point, they talk about like I think it's maybe under point number 5, take responsibility for what you can change, of like, are rewards aligned with employee preferences, which is a good question to ask, but also kind of funny one. They were like, okay, it's either food or money, and it may not be either one of those. And I think sometimes we do fall into that trap of like, oh, it's either food or money, or I've got to do something. So I've got to either bring pizza, or I've got to give them a bonus. I've got to do something that just like dangles a carrot in front of them to like do a better job, or just, can you just be happy you're here, or at least pretend that you are, because it's bumming the rest of us out, right? Like I think there are some benefits that could help alleviate disengagement, but I think sometimes we get pointed in like the taco truck direction, and that's a people centric ism of what we mean. And this article kind of touches on that. We hear a lot of people say, well, how do you make your culture better? And they start talking about, well, our office is really cool, and we've got ping pong tables, and we do pizza every Friday, and taco truck comes every other Tuesday. And when we say that, even at conferences and stuff, everybody laughs, because everybody knows like that's not really what culture feels like. Those are fun things, and we're huge advocates of the taco trucks, literally.
I
But
so wish that taco trucks improved engagement.
it would be really easy,
We
wouldn't it?
would we would
And
just
delicious.
buy a taco truck all day long and just go pizza. Like if all that stuff worked, like let's just really drive that. Like
Yeah.
all the research shows that those benefits are good. They're sustainable stuff, right? It keeps you fed, right? If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, you have to be fed first before you can feel self-actualized, right? If I'm hungry, I'm not going to be thinking about engagement, right? So if I'm financially unstable or I don't feel like I've got some extra stress at work or something like that, then those kinds of benefits just keep me kind of level. Even big pay increases for employees, it's like a shot of caffeine. Like it gets you going for a second and then it wears off really fast. And it actually has a rebound effect for people and engagement levels. So I'm not saying don't pay your people more. We always say, I like to say this, I like to say pay quietly. Like pay a good solid wage, like always be competitive, always be watching your benefits, always make sure your team is getting the things that they need so that they can turn around then and focus on the things that does drive engagement, which involves your vision, your mission, the direction, how they apply, how they work within that, what problems they solve. I think that's a
Yeah.
big part. They do mention some interesting programs here that really do potentially drive engagement in like employee assistance programs or mental health benefits, or extended leave options, things like that. And that's for like more specific, like if your employee is struggling with something that's not you, uh, that happens a lot, by the way. And I tell you, it's something that I know I've struggled with before. If somebody comes into work and they're feeling sad, it may not have anything to do with you, but it might be coming out at work. And so you might be thinking, okay, now this is my problem that I have to deal with. And you realize that it's got nothing to do with you. It's just the person's having a bad day or something's bad's happening at home. So those kinds of programs can help kick that to the outside a little bit. Stephanie, I apologize. I walked over you there for a second.
Oh, no, you're totally good. I was going to say the same thing that you did. Of like, I think if you look at this from a really individualized approach, yeah, some of the programs that they've outlined can be super beneficial, especially if you have a conversation with someone and they say, like, this is what I'm facing in my life right now, or I need a little bit more flexibility to be able to take care of myself or my family. You know, if you've got somebody who's never using their paid time off, right? Like those can be great things to point them to. But I think where our team, you know, pulled back from that a little bit and just kind of took a bigger picture view is that sometimes I think we do oversimplify like what would re-engage someone. Of these things definitely could. I think they could if it is addressing a specific situation in an individual's life. But if we're looking at like employee engagement across the board, then I think we need to look a little more broadly and like we've been saying, kind of look at those systems that impact it. Or are we really lacking on a specific benefit? Are we hearing it from a lot of people? Or, you know, are we having people that are struggling to commute to work and get to our office or do some of those things that's causing tardiness? Well, then maybe if we built in a little more flexibility, it would solve that and it would make people happy because they could have a little bit of buffer time because, you know, our office is in a big city and it's hard to get to, right? And I use that as an example because we've heard clients talk about that before. Like we've maintained the downtown office and we want the cool building. But now like nobody on our team can afford to live in this area. So everybody's commuting a long way into our office. And yeah, maybe instead of like nailing them on tardiness or being a little late for work, yeah, what if we built a little flexibility there and just showed our team we cared about them? So all that to say, I think, you know, some of what they're outlining there is good, but it is highly individualized. And you might take a step back if you're dealing with the same problem over and over and over again versus trying to solve it person by person, pull back and look at the system and say, what's causing this problem for everybody? And is there something we could reasonably do as the employer or the manager to accommodate or sometimes even solve it? Like we might just be doing it this way because that's the way we've always done it and we never updated that policy or we never changed that thing. Or does the meeting have to start at 8 a.m.? Could it start at 8:15 and would that break anything, right?
Yeah, and we've seen some employees just show if you show a little bit of flexibility, it goes a long way. Not because of the benefit that they got, but because I think they see the reason behind the benefit, which is you cared, you listened and you cared. Which brings to their point number 6. I don't think any of us have a problem with point number 6. I'm guessing it's the advice is bring respect to every interaction. The author quotes a person who suggests that the antidote to disengagement is respect. I like that. And they define respect as recognizing employees for their contributions, setting side time to meet one-to-one, and asking employees for their feedback. That's engagement. You know, the way you get engagement, we would say it this way, the way you get engagement is you engage your people. If you're having conversations with them and you're talking with them, that's really good. But again, you can't just assume that if you're an executive in a company, you can't just assume all your people are going to do that. Statistically, nationally, as Philip has already pointed out, people are not only not having those conversations well, they're not having very many conversations with their employees very well. They're just avoiding them altogether. They're focusing on other things because it could potentially generate more work for them. There's not in the habit. They can be hard conversations to have. So we have to train our people to have those conversations. We have to systematize how those conversations go, right? And then we have to structure it in a way where it's very clear who has those conversations. So I'm kind of skipping past that one, but I think there's some good advice in there. But I'm going to go to number 7, which I think if we weren't going to talk about this, number 7 was going to make us talk about this, because number 7 says cultivate a healthy company culture. So, Philip, if you could just describe in 2 sentences, how do you cultivate a healthy company culture? Please do
I've been
so.
working on smart brevity and can't do it. I can't do it. One of the reasons I think our team loved this article because it has really good meat to it. But that 7th point, even like none of us would disagree with that either. Like, yes, a healthy culture will be great for engagement. But I think one of the misnomers of just consulting in general, is that if you're going to make it trite, it's just a bunch of people who say really nice things but don't help you do them. And I think that call to action, like what is that? Where do I start? What do I do? If I'm engaged, I don't have a direction. If I'm disengaged, I don't care. And if I'm toxic, I'm not reading this article anyway. So I think it's again that idea, your culture is intentional. It could be accidental, so it's good to call to it, but a lot of what we do, really, you could say everything we do is help people build culture, but we can do that in 1,000 different ways. And everyone's culture might be different. You might have different strengths and weaknesses. If you don't know what those are, where do you start?
Yeah, I read that, and it's kind of almost like if you were to write an article with 7 steps on how to cure, a disease or something. And step 1 is listen to the patient. Step 2 is make sure you collect tests. And then step 7 was cure the patient.
Yeah,
That's what it's like.
that's exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah, that is the sense that I got too from it of like I think I get where the author was going with this. And again, like we agree with that. You need to cultivate a healthy culture. And I think that is the number one way to help with engagement. But yeah, it's uh there's a lot for me personally, I think left to be desired in the explanation on this. And again, not to repeat ourselves too much, but I think, you've got to look at what's actually impacting culture, and the fun stuff is fun, right? And we've done podcasts on like forced company fun and some of those things before. So if you're wanting to like listen back and find some of those, because those can also like kind of bite you a little bit, but like, yeah, like
like
there's
forcing people to listen to certain songs on a road trip.
you
No,
liked
that's
it
okay. That's okay, Philip.
and you
Force,
you
force
loved
function.
that,
That's
Yeah,
allowed.
Philip.
I'm blinking. People who are listening to the podcast, this is the sound of me blinking for help.
Like, Philip, everyone enjoyed that. I don't understand what the problem is.
Yeah, Matchbox 27 and
Mm.
counting chickens, counting crows. These are good things. No.
There are moments, dear listeners, where most of the time our team doesn't feel a generational divide, but when we start talking about bands, that is when it comes out. So without getting us totally off track, that's what's happening there. In case you're listening and you're like, those are not the name of those bands, Philip. We know.
I think
Philip just
Philip,
doesn't.
Philip, we've
Yes.
got a 6-hour car ride coming up together here in a couple of weeks. And when you hear the Counting Crows Marathon, because you didn't know about the Counting Crows, I think you're going to come away from it smarter, and you'll be very engaged because you have no place to go because we'll be driving 80 miles an hour down the highway.
Forced fun. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And again, and you loved it, and we will keep doing it. And it's obviously working for you.
Clearly, it's changed my life for better or for worse. No, I did not mean to detract. But your point of forced fun, I think that's the other part. If the question is, how do we change our culture? We're going to force the change in our culture. And we have seen that with many different groups where there's, again, good intentions. But if you force everyone to eat a donut or you force everyone to wear your logo, that is not long lasting, sustainable change either.
Well, and what I'll just say about forced fun, we don't have to get into this too much because again, it does kind of talk about that first and then it hits some other things, but is I think one of the biggest mistakes I think we see companies make when they decide to do something like fun for their team, and I did fun in air quotes, or they decide we're going to do something like for the employees, is that often those conversations still happen around the one small table where most of the decisions are made somewhere up top at the organization. And it's not all that often that then the company goes to the employees at all levels and roles and say, what would be fun for you and what do you want? I recently did this with one of our clients because they do like a day at the ballpark for their team, and they were like, it's the best day of the year, everybody loves it. And they're not wrong, like a lot of people really like it, but then other people didn't. And they were like, we just wish they would just like give us the option to either go or take the day off, because like I'd rather go fishing, or I'd just rather have that time with my kids. And when I shared that with them, at first the leaders were like, oh, those ungrateful jerks. But once they got past that really quickly, they're like, oh, you know what? We never asked them if anybody likes that, or if anyone even likes baseball or wanting to go to this. And so it was a good moment for them. We're like, oh yeah, maybe before we spend a bunch of money doing this next time, we should ask the employees, like, what would be fun for them? Like if there was going to be time spent with your coworkers and the company was willing to pay for something that maybe your family could come to, or you can bring a friend, like what would you like to do? And so again, that ties us back to the engagement of like, how do you engage your team? Is you just engage them. You have to go ask them. You have to go do those things. Again, I think that's where we call it forced fun, because if I had no say or ownership in what's happening, then I'm forced to do it kind of for better or for worse. Like Philip was saying that, tragically, he doesn't like our car karaoke sing-alongs, but I don't get that. But I think it's like you actually have to engage people, and that's how you change the culture of like, if you're doing stuff that no one's excited about anymore, like what if you went to your team and say, what would we be excited about doing?
We see too many companies, and I think this article kind of alludes to it. There's still some good advice in this section too, right? Providing they basically say hire an outside consultant, which we agree on. We think that's really a good
Amazing
idea too.
advice. That
That's
is
great
genius.
advice.
Yes.
Kudos
Bravo.
to Sherm for that one. But a lot of the things, it's like scheduling coffee times, catered lunches, informal opportunities for employees to connect. Kind of agree with that, kind of disagree with that. I think sometimes here's the trap. I think this article's not bad. I also don't think it's good, because I think what happens is it leads companies to really common mistakes that we see. And this one, I think, is the idea of, I have a vision for what I want my output of my culture to be. And so I'm going to fake the output without doing the work to actually change the inputs. So the inputs are the systems you put into place. It's how you hire, how you onboard people. It's how you get your organization designed. It's how you communicate. It's how you manage people, the systems. It's how you process things and how you improve processes by involving your people. And it's how you strategically plan and set goals and know what winning looks like. It's those 5 sets of systems, the people, communication, management, process, and strategy systems that we talk about a lot on a daily basis. You do those systems right, and what you'll see is engagement will increase. And then with the increased engagement, then people want to go to the chili cook-offs, and they want to go to the baseball games, and they want to do those things as a team because they like working with each other, because they respect each other. If you try to flip that and reverse it too much, if people are just miserable, and I was thinking of a police department that we've worked with where they were in a really bad situation. They were badly underfunded. They were badly understaffed. And we came in as a consultant and we did some interviews with the police department. And then we got to summarize back to them what we heard. And it was tempting to go back to them and saying, hey, everybody, it's going to be just fine because we're here and we're going to help you. And what you need to do is you need to care about each other more, and you need to change this, you need to change this, you need to change this. But instead, what we did is we said, wow, your situation's pretty bad. And it sucks. And none of you signed up for this. And this is a rough deal. And I think by saying that, that police department started to look at us and say, wow, we're on the same page here. We met them where they are. We say that a lot. And then now we can start to try to change these things. Now we can start to try to work towards things. And we did. We were able to work with them to help find some new revenue, which was really cool. That then their team got involved with that, which was awesome. That helped with their staffing. They talked about some benefits things. So, I mean, there were lots of things that we were able to do over time with them that greatly improved the morale and inside that department. But we didn't start by saying, hey, here's the good news. I know that you're understaffed and we're under budget, and here's some pizza, because that just doesn't work. That just doesn't work.
Well, I like that, what you're saying. I think sometimes culture and engagement are talked about in these really Pollyanna ways, and I think what people really just want in any workforce, in any industry, is something just real and substantive. So if I make six figures and have the best ping pong table and even amazing benefits, but I don't really know what my job is or what I'm supposed to do, then I will not succeed in my role and our company will not succeed, right? Or if you have the opposite where there's like micro clear direction, but your team treats you without respect and you're just a number, same thing. Like, I am not going to succeed. We will not do well in the long term. People will leave quick. That'll be expensive and costly for you and impact anything you're trying to do. So I love your point with this police department, because it really is showing up and saying, hey, this is where it is, but then engaging people to help make it better. You're your own experts. Why don't you lean into that? And I think that's a great solution.
Our team could provide a list of executives who make great money and have all the pizza in the world that they could want and are still very disengaged or even toxic in their jobs. That's not what it's really about. It's about the work itself. So again, key components of this is we can fight this battle one-on-one. And if you're a supervisor, manager up front, or even if you're an employee and you're like, man, I'm disengaged, I'm the one that's disengaged, this is a one-on-one battle for you. Like, that is where you fight. You do fight this one-to-one, and employees, you guys figure out, how do I get reinvigorated into my job? That's not everyone else's responsibility to bring to you. You have a role in that as well. What can I do to where can I make a difference? Am I being the kind of leader with the rest of the team that I should be? Am I showing up and being positive, even maybe when the company doesn't deserve that from me? You start looking for ways to have a positive influence on your team, and that will turn things around. If you're a supervisor or manager, those one-to-one conversations with your team are incredibly, incredibly important. But as a company, if you're really trying to address this issue, and if we're going to make a difference in the US and move that 33% engagement number up, then we've got to do systematic big changes in the organization. We need to train our managers. We need to think about how they have conversations with people. We need to set it up to make sure that they have those conversations and hold them accountable to having those conversations. We need to get feedback from the employees on how those conversations are going. We have to shift some of those problems that we have as a team all the way to the frontline employees so that they can do something about it, so that they're not just a victim of the process every day. We have to show them what winning looks like and how they get involved with winning inside the organization. Those are sets of systems that truly drive engagement. We just felt like this one was very, very hands-on, and we've seen so many organizations, you do the surveys, and then you start trying to address every individual little concern, and you get really, really frustrated. Well, they said we don't communicate enough, so we put out an extra email once a week, but now they're still upset about communication. Like, look, stop, don't treat the symptoms. We need to go treat the underlying disease, which most of the time is a lack of systems. So thanks for joining us this episode. This was a fun one. It's always fun to put out. And also, side note, shout out to SHRM. Like, it is a great organization that puts out lots of stuff. That's why we read the article, because they do a lot of really, really good stuff on this. This one we just thought was interesting because it's such a common approach that we see from companies that are trying to move the level of engagement and struggle with it because they're trying to do it one-on-one. So we thought this was a good opportunity for us to highlight a different approach, because we need a different approach because it's not moving in the US. 33% disengagement, or 33% engagement, 51% disengagement, the rest toxic. Those numbers have not moved dramatically in a long time. We've got to do something different. And in the current job market, by the way, where there's a shortage of workers, and there's companies that will not find the workforce that they need, what's going to happen is you have to be weird. You're going to have to buck these trends, and don't just think, oh, it's one-on-one for every single disengaged employee. We have to think, how do we change ourselves overall so that we get systematic engagement from our people? Because if you get systematic engagement, you'll see a really, really strong culture, and you won't have to bring the tacos. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.